Shalom, shalom, Israel. Welcome back to Stick to the Script Current Events, aka Hebrew News. My name is Shamar Yah, and to my left,
Shahad Amath.
Khan. And y'all know how we do this. We got into a couple events. I've said this a number of times, but tonight I'm serious. We're not gonna be before y'all for too long. We got a couple of things we're gonna go into. There was a whole lot, not even was, there is a whole lot that's actively unraveling in the world right now, right? You have a bajillion different, matter of fact, let's get into a couple of things. Let's start off with Sirach 5 and 15. Let's start off with our notorious, and then right after we get Sirach 5 and 15, we're gonna go over to Matthew 24.
And this is Sirach, or Easy Ecclesiasticus, in the Apocrypha, chapter 5 and verse 15. Be not ignorant of anything in a great matter or a small.
So he said, be not ignorant of anything. Basically, a lot of these things that are happening with these countries, they're going to affect us in one way or another. From the laws that are passed with the backhanded legislation that they slide into these things, the different policies that are being enacted, some of it to our benefit, some of it to our detriment. So he said, whatever it is, just don't be ignorant. Let's go over to Matthew chapter 24. And we're going to start at verse 6. So the apostles were asking Christ, what is going to be, how do we know that or what's going to be a sign that we're closer to you actually returning? Like, yeah, we understand you're going to make a return, but what are some of the things that we're going to start to see at that time that's going to let us know this is it? Let's start at verse 6.
This is Matthew chapter 24 and verse 6. And ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that ye be not troubled. For all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet.
He said, you're going to hear of wars and rumors of wars. Initially, we heard a whole lot of rumors, right? You had what was going on in the Middle East with Iraq, right? U.S. was over there for like 20 years. So we knew that there was an active war that was ongoing, but it was more of like an occupation. Not to say that it wasn't chaotic, not to say that there weren't a lot of deaths, but it was so long of a military occupation. It was more of like an animosity over a length of time. 20 years is a really long war, right? Especially with modern day technology, modern day weapons. There aren't too many wars that are going to last 20 years. It was more of an occupation. So Biden, his big thing, bring the troops home, and almost immediately, like a year or two later, you got Russia with Ukraine, followed by China talking about rumors of potentially invading Taiwan. You got Iran just fired missiles into Israel. You got the whole Israel and Hamas. Pretty quickly, things started to escalate, and we're not only just hearing of the rumors of the potentials and the Kim Jong-un and his big red button, but the reality of, oh, there's actually war that's going on, and it's already had an effect, right? We already see the gas prices, we see the inflation. All of these bills that keep being signed, no matter what the bill is about, they manage to find some amount of money to give aid to Ukraine and to give aid to Israel, right? Or the Israel of the East, the actual landmass and the people who are there. I think with the TikTok bill that just got signed into legislation that Biden okayed, it was $85 billion going to Ukraine, 21 or 26 billion going to Israel, right? And I think 8 billion going to the Indo-Pacific, like islands. So I'm like, quite a bit of money, right? But where do you think that money is going to come from? Us. That's not coming out of politicians' pockets. It's not going to come out of billionaires and millionaires that are evading their taxes. It's going to come out of the everyday man. And that's why you constantly see gas prices in, the rapid rise. Just last week, it was like barely $5. This week, it's on the verge of $6.
Yeah.
It was an immediate change, but guess what? That's a whole lot of profit. That's a whole lot of oil that's being paid, that sanctions are being paid on. That's a whole lot of money that's going to go into the U.S. Treasury, and then that's going to be immediately sent to American allies. That's going to cost our people. So that's one of the ways that we don't want to be ignorant of these things, because they have a very direct effect on our everyday lives. We have to buy gas. And if you're buying an electric vehicle, then that's a whole different story, right? But there's a whole lot of speculation as far as kill switches and things that are going to be implemented with that. So let's get into this. Let's get to this first article, because we're hearing of the wars and the rumors of wars. It says how Israel and allied defenses intercepted more than 300 Iranian missiles and drones. So Iran has already fired on Israel quite a few times. I believe this is Sunday, April 14th. It says almost all the ballistic missiles and drones Iran launched at Israel in an unprecedented attack late Saturday were intercepted and failed to meet their mark, according to Israeli and American officials, highlighting the formidable and multi-layered missile defense deployed by the two allied partners, right? Of course, they're going to big up themselves, but,
Right.
Who wouldn't?
Right.
Most of the more than 300 Iranian munitions, the majority of which are believed to have been launched from inside of Iran's territory during a 5-hour attack, were intercepted before they got to Israel, more than 1,100 miles or 1,770 kilometers from their launch points. Israel's military said Sunday that 99% of projectiles fired by Iran were intercepted by Israel and its partners, with only a small number of ballistic missiles reaching Israel. In total, around 170 drones, and that's pretty significant, because not only do these drones oftentimes have explosives, there's even just been entire planes that are remote controlled, like the little RC helicopters and planes that you had as a kid, but it's a full-blown plane, and it's just kamikazing into a building. More than 30 cruise missiles and more than 120 ballistic missiles were launched at Israel by Iran overnight Saturday. In a call Sunday, U.S. President Joe Biden told Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu that constituted a win for Israel, as nothing of value was hit, a senior U.S. administration official told CNN. So this is crazy. So this is, America's whole, and we got a clip. Let's play that clip. America's whole boast of its Iron Dome, right? Even the name itself, it's impenetrable, the Iron Dome. It's so difficult to be able to get something in there. Look at all that that's lighting up the sky. Look at all that that's lighting up the sky. Look at all that. And they're saying, a couple of them got through, nothing of any real significance. But there was over 300 different things that were launched directly from Iran, too. So it's not like it's going to be a possibility of them coming out at a later time saying it was some ally or some terrorist group where they don't want to claim responsibility. They were full well willing to let it be known that they were enemies of Israel. Con, that's all you got to play from that. You don't have no audio neither. So it's been pretty wild. Pretty wild. So they launched, and then mind you, a 5-hour attack. That was a full-blown siege. So these nations, they're at war with each other. And out of everything that's been being talked about, I don't know, maybe I don't keep up with politics enough. Iran kind of came as a surprise to me. Like, where did they come from? The whole, the beat this prompted such a large attack. It says the U.S. Navy shot down at least 3 ballistic missiles using the Aegis missile defense system. And then right under that, it says U.S. warplanes also shot down Iranian ordnance. While it was not revealed from where those U.S. jets operated, there are U.S. Navy aircraft carriers and land-based aircraft well within range of the region. So it's just, I mean, man. But like the scriptures say, just like lightning is in the east and to the west, so shall the coming of man be. All the things that we're seeing happening in the east are slowly going to start to spread. Right now, they're like the furthermost part of the world east, right? And slowly but surely, it's going to start to make its way west and will be the end, infinitely and definitely, of Babylon. Let's go to the, you can close this tab. Let's go to this next one. I definitely need volume on this. Like, definitely need some volume on this one. Say it again? Yeah. Say it again? Yeah. It's not that one. Salakia Israel, we're having some technical difficulties. What we're going to do is we're going to Jimmy rig it and play it from our microphones just so that the audio can be heard, because unfortunately we're not able to play it directly from the computer.
From UNRWA. Now, as we head into the segment, I just want you to keep in mind, as a context, that our government just officially certified that they have no evidence Israel is violating international humanitarian law. Okay? Keep that in mind as we move forward. Let's put this latest report from UNRWA on detainees, Palestinian detainees being held by Israel, being tortured. This matches up, by the way, with a number of prior media accounts. But I want to give you some of the specifics here because they really matter. So first of all, let me read a little bit from this report. They say ill treatment of detainees was reported to have occurred primarily while in the barracks and to have intensified in advance of interrogation sessions. This included being subjected to beatings while made to lie on a thin mattress on top of rubble for hours without food, water, or access to a toilet, with their legs and hands bound with plastic ties. As a side note, there are doctors who came out and said that amputations of limbs because of handcuffing procedures was commonplace in these facilities. The report goes on to say several detainees reported being forced into cages and attacked by dogs. Some released detainees, including a child, had dog bite wounds on their body. Detainees were threatened with prolonged detention, injury, or the killing of family members if they did not provide requested information. One detainee said, and this is difficult to hear, so warning there, but this is their quote: "They made me sit on something like a hot metal stick, and it felt like I have burns in the anus. The soldiers hit me with their shoes on my chest and used something like a metal..."
So this is the reports, right? So mind you, and you know what they say, all is fair in love and war. And what that basically means is that when you're dealing with something that is this intense, it's like there's no rules, basically, right? And it's crazy how, and sometimes I'm even just blown away. Because when we look at the animal kingdom, people are like, oh, we have so much to learn from animals. Animals are brutal. Animals, there is no political correctness when you have a hungry predator and a vulnerable prey. There is no, oh, let me try to be gentle. Oh, it's wounded. This is not a fair fight. I've never. Now I've seen instances where certain animals will take a baby and they'll keep it for a little while. I don't know why they do that. Maybe it's like their maternal instincts kick in. They're like, oh, this is so sad. But they're still animals. They kill it and they eat it. And it's not even like animals always kill other animals conveniently. They don't always go for throat shots and instant kills. They can eat from the back up. And it's a slow, gruesome, long process of death. The whole thing is, as much as people have said that humans are animals, we live in a society where we're convinced, like truly have bought into the ideology that certain things aren't possible. We've bought into the belief that certain things can't happen. And it's crazy because, I mean, just being honest, if you was around back then, if you've been around for a little while, even on the like some of the darker parts of the internet, I think like Gore.com and LiveLeak and all that type of stuff, you can see how brutal things can really get. But it's even worse because not only have we entered into a new age, but also everything is being filmed. And there's all these reports and all these instances of absolute acts of brutality occurring between people regardless of law. So law is in place because it's supposed to be obeyed. And if it works and if people obey it, it's usually productive, right? Usually. If we were to have lived by the law of the Most High, oh man, this earth would literally be a utopia. Literally. There is not one law that I've ever seen in the scriptures that I was like, I wonder why he did that. All of it makes sense. All of it is for the betterment of our people. All of it would make the world a better place. Even as far as some of the laws that man has tried to enact, some of it kind of is like, all right, I can see why they said that. Not all of it. There's a whole lot of BS, like the scriptures say. He frames mischief by law. But when you have things in place like the Geneva Convention and you start outlawing certain weapons and elements of war, you could see like, oh man, wow, it's a brutal way to die. Flamethrowers, for example, they're outlawed. Why? Because look at how people look after being lit on fire. Look at how it's a process of dying. It sucks. So all these nations have come together and said, hey, you know what? Moving forward, when it comes down to war, however we're going to settle our differences, we're not going to use a flamethrower. It's only fair. All the nations sign and they're all agreeing, okay, we're not going to use a flamethrower. But the reality is, what's really supposed to stop someone on the ground from using a flamethrower? It's not like it's impossible, right? So there are laws that are supposed to be in effect with not only with combat, but with prisoners of war. And there's a certain way they're supposed to be treated, and there's a certain way they're supposed to be detained, and there's a certain way that they're supposed to be able to still have a certain level of rights. And they're kind of like, yeah, they may be made to work or something like that. They may be fined. They may be stuck in a cell like jail, but they're still supposed to be treated human. That's not what's happening. And this isn't even the only instance where there are people who are on the ground reporting instances, and a number of instances that are happening right now in Israel where people are not being treated according to the code of conduct with prisoners of war. So if you heard the video, they talked about being, fastened or not fastened and not shackled, handcuffed. So if you know those real strong, they're not even vice grips. What do you call those things? The little zip ties. They got those super big ones that they use for people, right? To be able to detain a person, and it's thick enough to not very easily at all be broken. They're handcuffing people so with the zip tie so tight and for so long, it's causing amputations, right? They're sicking dogs on people. It said that a man, they put a hot poker inside of him. And he was like, I have internal burns along my, my organs internally because I've been burned by this. These are prisoners of war. So it's a real big highlight as to how war actually looks and what it actually is. And now, my whole thing is this. I'm not going to be, if you want to be honest, I'm not gonna be too concerned. Not only is it on the other side of the world, but we got a relationship with these people that ain't friendly, right? We have a horrible history where they have been responsible for genocides that have been taking place amongst our people. But one thing that for sure shows me is when things progress and ultimately these prophecies are fulfilled, ain't no punches held.
Right.
Ain't no punches held. And that's just the reality of it, because you already see how they're doing their own people. Now, a lot of times, you know, people try to go by all these different different names of these new nations. Look, Esau is Esau. Yeah, they go by Roman, they go by Italian, they go by Greek, they go by Israeli and all that type of stuff. They're the nation of Esau. And even on the ground, this is how they doing each other. Imagine. I don't even want to imagine, but it's just the reality. What's going to happen when it's wartime with the true children of Israel?
Come on.
Man, it's a whole lot of these instances. And this isn't the only country, this isn't the only instance, but these are the realities of what's happening on the ground in these war zones right now, today, right? But the crazy part about it is, and I think she goes on to explain it, I'm not sure how long into the video, how long is that video actually?
It is 13 minutes.
Yeah, we probably not gonna do the whole 13 minutes. Basically, the whole point that she starts going into, she brings on a co-host, and what they start going into is that the United States is aware of these reports or has access to be aware of these reports. And the whole thing that she's trying to bring out is that the U.S. is because there's nothing prohibiting them from accessing this information, they must be aware that this is one of the nations that they're supporting and that they're giving aid to. This is the actions that are being conducted on the ground with U.S. support, with U.S. weapons, with U.S. funding.
Oh, she's basically saying that the U.S. is complicit in these acts of war.
That's exactly what she's saying, and they go into it heavy. If you wanna finish the video, you can on your own time. It is on YouTube, and it actually is a pretty interesting video because again, they're like, well, who's aware of this information? Why haven't they done this information? And they call out the U.S. pretty heavily. Mind you, being American journalists,
Right.
They call out the U.S. pretty heavily, saying that this is a lot of times the case that happens in politics. Anyone who should be aware that's able to make some type of change or sound the alarm is going to hit you with the okie doke, the classic, we're going to investigate and get back to you. And they never are actually going to come to any kind of concrete conclusion, right? But it's just the brutality of war. It's just something to be aware of because we're already in this place currently in the scriptures. We're not just hearing the rumors anymore. I think when I was in middle school, that's when like Kim Jong-un was the big thing. Like, oh man, what's gonna happen? Is the world gonna end? I may have been early high school. Like, oh man, what's gonna happen? It's been what, a decade plus since I really started to understand, you know, who he was and what was going on, and he hasn't pressed that big red button yet. But we hear about a whole lot of other places, and no longer just rumors and how people are preparing, but how the wars have actually started and the reality of what's going on the ground. Can we take back to the PowerPoint? We're going to skip over to the next one.
This is deadly Dubai floods made worse by climate change.
Scroll down for me just a smidgen. There you go. Thank you, sir. It says, deadly storms that left Dubai underwater and killed more than 20 people in Oman were likely made worse by climate change, scientists say. Heat pumped into the atmosphere by humans made the record rainfall 10 to 40% heavier, they say. But the natural weather pattern El Nino also drove the intense storms. So one of the things, let's real quick, let's go to Daniel. Daniel, and I believe I want chapter 6. So if you don't know, Dubai has to be the richest country in the world, right? Even some of the things that they don't do, even as far as what they disclose, I think they might have the highest GDP out of any nation, but don't quote me on that. because I for sure haven't. I for sure don't know 100%. But one thing I will say is Dubai is known for extravagant wealth, and there are, they don't abide by the same laws as like some of the things that America prefers or demands that some of these trillionaires and some of these royal families disclose their net worth. So you have people that speculate these guys got to be trillionaires. You see that crazy stuff on YouTube that, we getting Arab money. They got the all gold Benz, like a 20,000 pound car, an actual functioning car. It's made out of gold. You're talking about Dubai. You're talking about Middle Eastern guys, right? Daniel chapter 7 and verse 5.
This is Daniel 7 and verse 25.
Uh-huh.
And he shall speak great words against the Most High.
I'm sorry, hold on 1 second. Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
Verse 25, and he shall speak great words against the Most High,
Uh-huh.
and shall wear out the saints of the Most High, and think to change times and laws, and they shall be given into his hand until a time and times and the dividing of time.
Hold on 1 second. I'm sorry. Let's go to Isaiah chapter 14. So the reason why I'm going to this is because if you don't know, in the midst of that extravagant and extreme wealth, not only does Dubai have some of the wonders of the world currently that are just man-made that they've chosen to construct within the last like 20 years, they also have, and a lot of it has been really innovative. A lot of it actually has been really fascinating, really interesting, and really impressive even. It's just as far as humans go. They have entire areas, that are like air conditioned on the street. You're like, man, they build island cities and underwater hotels, just like dystopian future stuff that exists right now in this time. Isaiah chapter 14, verse 13.
Verse 13, for thou hast said in thine heart, I will ascend into the heaven.
Uh-huh.
I will exalt my throne above the stars of God.
Uh-huh.
I will sit also upon the mount of the congregation
Go ahead.
in the sides of the north.
Uh-huh.
I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will be like the Most High.
That's what I wanted. He said, I will be like the Most High. In all of this innovation and in all of this technology, they have something that's called seeding. And seeding, as far as the atmosphere is concerned, is where they will release either positively or negatively charged atoms or like protons and electrons into the atmosphere and basically control the weather. If you didn't know, they've been doing this for quite some time. I believe America even has something that's called DARPA, right? A whole lot of things where countries are trying to control the weather. The problem is it backfired big time in Dubai, right? And that's why you're seeing a weather phenomenon currently, because it is a result of they're already seeding into the atmosphere with the added expected climate of this time of year. So it's already expected, there's always this El Nino. Okay, it's going to be more rain, it's going to be more hot, we can expect this around this time. They're sitting up here trying to control the atmosphere. Oh, it's too hot today. Oh, no, what we'll do, we'll make it rain for 20 minutes. It'll cool everything down, and then we'll just go back to life as normal. They sit up here, they let out, they seed the atmosphere, and then it triggers something that was totally out of their control. And it's the Most High saying, like, look, you're not in control. That's the whole thing. And this is no different, because even though this is the land that's called Babylon and spiritual Sodom and Egypt, all nations have partaken of the wine of her fornication. All these nations are still profiting off of Israel's destruction, still have a hand in the pot, and still have leagues with Esau one way or another to be able to profit their kingdom. This is one of the times, just like how he did in ancient Egypt, they had all these gods that they would worship and reverence and felt like they had all this control. The Most High is like, man, y'all not in control. they release all this stuff into the atmosphere, and then it caused devastating and catastrophic floods. I don't know what the death count is, but I know that it's been a pretty serious thing in their country. Let's go back to the PowerPoint. It says scientists warn the link to climate change is not fully certain because the rarity of rainfall in the region gives them little data to work with. It don't naturally rain. So they sitting up here making it rain all the time. It's like, now they didn't start something that they're not even able to control. It says, in Dubai, some areas recorded more than 250 millimeters of rain in less than 24 hours, exceeding all records in daily rainfall in the 75 years since records began. So in all of the time that they've ever kept records, there's a new record being set for the amount of rainfall that they experience. It says the country averages 140 to 200 millimeters of rainfall per year, and 250 millimeters fell in less than 24 hours. Can we get the conversion on this? How many inches of rain that is? 250 millimeters. It says the monthly average for April is millimeters. It says at least 20 people have died in Oman and 4 in the United Arab Emirates when the storm hit on April 15th. The second busiest in the world was forced to cancel hundreds of flights. Scroll down.
So 250 millimeters is almost 10 inches.
Sheesh. 10 inches of rain, you're talking about within 24 hours.
Right.
And they usually don't even get, 200 millimeters in a year. And that's just in one day. It says, scroll down a little bit more for me, Yashawn. It says, it happened after months of hotter than average sea surface temperatures, partly caused by El Nino, which is when warm waters rise to the surface of parts of the Pacific. The higher ocean temperatures added more moisture to the atmosphere, making heavy rainfall more likely. So they got more than they can do. But they also playing God.
Yeah, they typically add a little less than 4 inches a year.
Damn. That's crazy. Let's close this one out. Right, so we usually go international, then we bring it back a little closer to where we are. If you are having an emergency, it's crazy because I didn't even include, mind you, I kind of just picked certain stuff because it's so much news, it's constant. So many food recalls, so many legislative changes that are being made, so many cities, states, and counties that have declared recently that they would no longer be taking 911 calls unless it was a deathly emergency. They're no longer doing wellness checks. I think it was in Michigan. They're saying that they no longer even chase you for basic traffic violations. If you just driving recklessly, they're like, we can't afford to extend ourselves anymore.
Sheesh.
So it says major 911 outages in 4 states leave millions without an easy way to contact authorities. So there have also been 911 outages nationwide, right? It says law enforcement agencies across 4 states were left scrambling following reports of major 911 outages that left millions unable to quickly contact authorities in emergencies late Wednesday. Many of the outages reported in Nebraska, Nevada, South Dakota, and Texas were restored by the late evening, but the FCC said Thursday its investigation is just getting started. When you call 911 in an emergency, it is vital that call goes through. The FCC has already begun investigating the 911 multi-state outages that occurred last night to get to the bottom of the cause and impact. So far, there is no indication that the outages were caused by a cyber attack or other malicious act, law enforcement officials told NBC News on Thursday. First of all, I don't believe that. Let's be honest. Because there's never, as far as I know, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know if you've ever heard of these major 911 outages, especially not statewide.
No.
That's crazy. Statewide, and not just one state, 4 states. 4 states experiencing major outages, right? And they were restored later on that day. And that was the first thing, like, oh, we don't think it's a cyber attack. Honestly, I think I would have felt more comfortable if it was. So you saying that whatever you have in place across 4 states and millions of people that is supposed to be able to support you in a life-threatening emergency, it doesn't even work, and y'all not even sure how it happened?
It's you gotta keep reading. No, I was gonna say so. It gives some information on what happened. They said that a third-party company unrelated to Lumen physically cut our fiber while installing a light pole. Sure, right? But my thing is, like, if you're a major internet service provider, how do you not have built-in redundancy?
Right.
You telling me one cable being cut knocks out 911 emergency services for 4 states?
Right. And you know what's crazy? There's been a whole lot of these instances. There was the 911 outages. There was an ammunition plant fire. I should have probably threw that one in here. I can't even remember what state it was, but it was one of the biggest manufacturers of ammunition in the United States, right? And the whole factory, which, like you said, why wouldn't they have redundancies?
Right.
If we're working with gunpowder
Right.
and bullets
Right.
24/7, this is all we do. We don't make pizzas. We don't fix cars. We don't sell shoes. They just manufacture ammunition. You telling me a fire took place in there and there's not a million systems that are in place to be able to prevent some type of emergency or fire happening? But here's the reality. America has always welcomed everybody with open arms, right? Anybody can come to America and fulfill the American dream. Now, the reality is you have an amalgamation of all these different, nations in America simultaneously. And you have everybody's able to just get a regular job. Everybody's able to walk and fulfill their dream. So you have people that, how can you really verify? How could you really verify everyone who's in an important position that could affect national security, that could affect statewide even security, that could affect ammunition sales or production for the war? How can you assure everyone who's doing everything has America at its best interest?
Right.
You can't. So was this some legitimate accident, or could this have been someone like, hey, you got to cut this. Let's see how much time we can get.
Yeah.
You really don't know. And that's the whole thing as to what they're trying to figure out. And even if this does end up being a pure coincidence, it doesn't negate the fact that, like you said, it's that simple.
Right. Now, blueprint.
Boom, right. We hit a telephone pole. It's knocked over. Boom.
911 outage, multi-state 911 outage.
Multi-state. And you're telling me this guy just did this? Like, oh, I wasn't supposed to cut that cable?
And that's the thing, right? You know, in the society, 911 has been around for some people lifetimes, right? And so when you're having an emergency, the only thing that you know to do is to call 911. So what happens when the one resource that has been drilled into your mind to call is not available, right? Now it's panic mode, right. and you have all it takes is one little emergency in one town, and 911 emergency services aren't available. Like, that can grow exponentially.
Oh yeah, and then mind you, it said that it was down for about 2.5 hours. Imagine someone catches on like 5 minutes in, they're like, oh, hold on.
Right.
Everything's down right now.
Well, the thing is, even so, let's say there are more nefarious things going on, right?
Right.
Now you know, okay, cut this one cable. You have a multi-state outage. Now you are free to run amok in 4 states because people aren't going to easily be able to get emergency services.
Man, and you talking hours? Yeah. Hours. Sheesh.
One of the things that makes us the strongest as well as the weakest societies are our ability to communicate.
Right.
Like our society greatly depends on our ability to be able to communicate with emergency services, to be able to communicate with officials, to be able to communicate with military services. You knock out that communication ability, and we're basically back to the Dark Ages.
Man, yeah, 100%. So we gonna see, but they like, oh well, we don't think it was a cyber attack as of yet. But let's go over to take us back to the. Let's go to the next one. It's crazy because one of the things that I thought I included in this, and I was gonna go to Ephesians. Let me see what I had here. Ephesians 5:15-17, talking about observing the times for the days are evil. One of the things I didn't include that I intended to include was right here, if I'm not mistaken, in California, there was a homeless man. So I guess a man had committed suicide on the train tracks. He killed himself. His body obviously came apart because he got hit by a massive train. And then a homeless man comes by and collects some of the remains, a leg, and was eating the human leg walking down the street. It was wild. It was wild. There's actual footage of it. I might just throw it in there just because I didn't mention it so much. I might just have to.
Well, that's pretty much the story.
Yeah, but it's like the footage though. I will show that real quick because it's like a 30-second video. I'm gonna throw that on there real quick. But let's get into this real fast.
Yeah. This is CNN. Russia-linked hacking group suspected of carrying out cyber attacks on Texas water facility, cybersecurity firm says. A hacking group with ties to Russian government is suspected of carrying out a cyber attack in January that caused a tank at a Texas water facility to overflow. The hack in the small town of Muleshoe in North Texas coincided with at least two other towns in the North Texas taking precautionary defensive measures after detecting suspicious cyber activity on their networks, town officials told CNN. The FBI has been investigating the hacking activity, one of the officials said. The attack was a rare example of hackers using access to sensitive industrial equipment to disrupt regular operations at a water facility, following a separate cyber attack last November on a Pennsylvania water plant that U.S. officials blamed on Iran.
So, wow, right? So they're like, oh, it wasn't related. But here's the thing, cyber attacks are a reality.
Yeah.
Warfare has changed.
Yeah.
It's no longer it's no longer the sophisticated swordsman. It's no longer the spearmen. It's not even that stuff anymore. So much as you can bring it back to us and it's not even those things anymore. But that's like ancient, right? Even when guns got invented, that all ended with swords for the most part. And then it's evolved into like, all right, men standing on a line, they just kind of shooting at each other, walls of people, and they just hoping to hit each other, Civil War type cannons, and then you get more advanced and more advanced and more advanced, and then it was like rockets and missiles and guides and lasers, and now it's like cyber attack, and it flooded a town. So we're not talking about, they cyber attacked and shut the internet off and people lost their minds. We're talking about, if they could use a cyber attack to do that, why wouldn't they be able to shut off some level of communication and then do it? And then all these people with no warning will be just underwater. Cyber attacks. So this is, and then mind you, and this is the crazy part about not only the technology, but it's the way that everyone, all these major nations are kind of like trying to hold off because they know it's end game. They know as soon as somebody launches something, it's end game. They know it's a Russian hacker group, and they know that it has some ties to the Russian government. And they're not like, man, this is an act of war. Man, you ain't never. They're like, all right, this is what happened.
Well, the thing that the media doesn't tell you is this is what everyone does. Like every government out there is hacking every other government out there.
Oh yeah.
And it's a regular routine part of the times. Man. And so they're going to expose when they feel like they have enough evidence to say this is what it was and this is who it came from, but they can't denounce it too much because we're doing the same thing.
Right. And the movie Snowden.
Yeah.
He highlighted a whole lot of secrets, but the crazy part about it is all he did was confirm.
Right.
Like you say, it's not like these nations don't know, and they all doing it to each other. But I'm pretty sure even the fact that he exposed all those things should have been like instant war. Like, oh, hold on, you tapped into but listen to the systems he talked about. He talked about like power plants. He talked about hospitals. He talked about infrastructure.
Right.
Because ultimately, if you could bring that down, a nation can't deploy a military, and it has basically a dying country behind it.
Right.
No more recruits, no more coordination, and then the whole thing about soldiers a lot of times is that they're able to focus on the job. Well, if you got family back in the States that's no longer safe, man, I got to get back to my family.
Right.
You pretty much destabilize the military just with that alone. And all of these countries are like, yeah, at any point, we're preparing. We've implanted malware into all these different forms of infrastructure amongst some of our suspected, well, not even suspected, some of our less than friendly, some of our enemies and some of the ones that we suspect may flip, basically.
Right.
And they all know that everybody else is doing it. Now it's just a race against the clock and who can get the best hackers and who can do it the best, because ultimately they are planning for these things. Nations, and that's the crazy part about it is outside of a civil war, I don't think war has ever been fought on American soil. Nope. We always picture war as like, oh, it's going to be, but the reality is to those countries, that's where the civilians were.
Well, and the thing is, like, so one of the things that we have in the Americas on our side is our proximity, right? We are oceans away from all these other nations, and so in order to physically get to us, you have to have equipment, right? You have to have planes, you have to have ships, and it's not that easy to come to the Americas without being detected, right? But the thing that these other nations have understood is the power of destabilization, right? So if we can destabilize your infrastructure, now we just have to sit back and watch you destroy yourself.
Right.
Because this is the thing, right? This nation is a nation that has become one that is very much about me, you, individualism, right? And when you have an emergency situation, people don't, it's not like a community, it's not like a tribe, it's not like a group mindset. It becomes hysteria because everyone is trying to protect themselves and theirs, right? And so what happens is people are going to turn on each other, and slowly civilization is going to implode because people are untrustworthy of one another. You don't have the familiarity even with your neighbors that neighborhoods used to have 20, 30 years ago. That's a thing of the past now. You barely know your neighbors, you barely know the community that you live in, and you don't really trust anyone. And so when times get difficult, people are going to turn inwards instead of turning outwards, and it's basically going to be chaos and destruction. And these other nations are understanding that we can destroy a nation without any bombs, without any nukes, without any bullets. We just have to destabilize the infrastructure and sit back and watch that country implode.
100%. And it's crazy because that big movie on Netflix, Leave the World Behind, that was exactly what happened.
That's exactly. And how many times have we seen things in the movies, seen things on TVs, and then those things end up happening? Jeez. A lot of people have this idea that they show us things in the movies before they do it, right? Because if they show us and we see what's going on and we don't do anything to counter those things, then it's like we're giving you permission to do this to us.
Predictive programming.
Yeah.
Man. It was something you had said. If I don't remember my point, I'll probably just move on. But so one of the things, like you said, the equipment. The crazy part about it is, look at the border of America. It's crazy, and I've talked about this so many different times because there's so many different forms of media, not just TV and shows. I think it was Call of Duty, Modern Warfare 3, or Modern Warfare 2, right? So it's literally highlighting modern warfare.
Right.
And in the storyline, there were people from the Middle East sneaking over into the Mexican border, and they're like, they're yellow skinned, they shave their beards, they get on some of the local clothing, and they just cross into the border. And then there's literally a video, and it's the internet. It's endless information, endless evidence.
Right.
There's a video of this Middle Eastern man, and someone's going around interviewing people who are crossing over. And dude had like the heaviest accent. He like, you will know who I am soon. You will know. And I was like, yo, somebody should get down there and see what's going on.
Right.
But that's just the reality. Just watched the video earlier because I was still trying to comb through what some of the things to highlight tonight. A boat full of people dressed in black just crashes up on the beach. And everybody just hop out. And I said, okay, I can see one man for sure. He had a wife, right? She was slower. She was heavier. He was holding her purse in one hand. He's clearly running faster than her, trying to get her to keep up. I said, all right, that looks legit. The rest of them look like strong men. They wasn't running slow. They wasn't slowing down. Didn't nobody have a bad hip, a bad back. They looked like healthy, younger men that was just storming the beach. And I was like, any other time in history, in any other place, this would be considered an invasion.
Right.
But America's open borders and open policy, and it's the American dream. It ain't no telling how many people from other countries with whatever purposes and intents have already snuck across one of these open borders into America and are just waiting on the word.
Sleeper cells.
A sleeper cell, right? No, literally though. We really like that. That's the crazy part about it.
Pure speculation, by the way.
It is pure speculation, but it's also probability. And it's just like Bishop Tizaiwan was saying, I think it was this past weekend. He said we really gotta lock in with the Most High. The time is coming. It's not gonna be like, oh, we're figuring it out and oh, this is kind of applicable at any time. It's happening actively and rapidly. It's really, the prophecy is unfolding like rolling out a carpet. It's just, we just watching it disappear, or watching it rather appear as it goes. We're watching it happen, and it's like, oh, it's getting close. Oh, the time is upon us.
We have Canada above us that is becoming more and more of a society, implementing measures to lock down their citizens and control their citizens more and more. It almost feels like a testing zone for America. And then we have below us Mexico, which has its own problems and is not necessarily our ally, and it is allowing not only their citizens but other country citizens to come through their country into the Americas. So it's not really, we're not really safe. We're not really impenetrable, right? And you know, who knows who's coming over, like Shamar was saying, and what their intentions are. So it's high time to lock in.
Man, oh man. Can you take us back? I'm gonna just show this clip real quick. I know we said we was gonna be quick. We like 40 minutes in. I think we started a little bit late. We apologize for that as well, but we not. You know what I'm saying?
We got time.
Yeah, we got a little time. Let's play this video real quick, just to show, like, this is what we're talking about. America has some of the highest rates of mental illness, of suicide, of schizophrenia, just all these different things. You can go down the list of all these different illnesses. Oh, right, the audio. No bueno. That's absolutely right. Let me do that real quick. Yeah, I'll probably just narrate because they're not really saying anything in the audio that's like super important. But the whole thing is, America. The moment that America started being for profit is when, as much as people be like, "Oh, you're a communist, you're a fascist," they say these things like they're horrible, bad words, like they cussing at you and cursing your grave and your whole lineage. But the whole thing is, America is capitalist, right? And capitalism is supposed to be that anybody from any standpoint or starting point should be able to elevate. The reality is that's not very applicable, right? Doesn't happen very often, and it needs extraordinary circumstances. So what you have is people start from the bottom, and one mistake means that they go even lower. Then you have homelessness. Then you have mental illness. Then you have disease. Then you have pestilence. Then you have instances like this. It says, California man arrested for allegedly eating a severed leg that he took from a pedestrian who was struck by a train. I just wanted to show this because it was just, and it's blurred out. You know, you're not going to see the leg or nothing like that. I just wanted to show the video. So they like, look at this. He's taking bites off the leg. That's one of the things that they ended up saying in the video. It said, oh, actually, no, they have it right here. It says, Tellez was seen eating the leg, according to a witness, and was later booked in the jail for removing or mutilating human remains. The man who was struck by the train sadly died. He's holding a human leg and just walking down the street with it. I mean, my God. I mean, they blurred it, but you can see. That's all. You can see it.
What a time to be alive.
What a time. But see, here's the thing. The scriptures also even spoke about that. Let's get that in Revelation.
This is Revelations 18 and verse 2.
Uh-huh.
And he cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the Great is fallen, and is become the habitation of devils, and the hold of every foul spirit, and a cage of every unclean and hateful bird.
That's what we're seeing. Babylon falling. As much as they tried this, man, America done had its hand in so many different places, but all the while, home ain't been right. All the while. The suicide rate amongst veterans, the suicide rate amongst teenagers, the suicide rate amongst men, the suicide rate amongst women, the cases of mental illness, because everything's for profit. So it's not really about changing something drastic that's going to help people and, you know, changing something that's really going to get people to have a more humane mindset, so to speak. It's been about profit. So if they're mentally ill and you can prescribe them medication, you making money, that has been America's intention. And it's always been like that, right? We don't really even accept a lot of times how bad things are because in the morning we got to go to work. We got to still pay bills. We still got to survive and do basic things and menial things to continue to operate in a currently still functioning society. But look at the chaos. We're living in a war zone. We're living where constant sirens are going by, helicopters every night, constant threats, constant shootings, stabbings, massive emergencies, blocked off streets. We're seeing this on a for some people, they see it on a daily basis. And we're not even just talking about the high crime rate areas anymore. We're talking about everywhere, even in the places that have been regarded as nice and safe and more comfortable, seeing a lot of these instances because people are just losing their minds. But this is America. Man, oh man. And all of this for profit and all of America's ideals and ideologies, America has dug its own grave. And everything that it's done, it has been counterproductive in the long run to sit up here and prioritize wealth over people. It has been counterproductive to prioritize what can be gained from a person as opposed to helping them. It has been counterproductive because all these other nations, they have closed borders, for example. If something goes down in China, it's mostly all the same nation of people. Even though they be like, oh, I'm Chinese, I'm Cantonese, I speak this, I speak that, slight different dialects. They're pretty much, for the most part, all speaking the same language, all aware that they're the same people, all understanding you're a member of my nation. And when it goes down, it's us against everybody else. Who's the everybody else, even in America? Statistically, they saying that it's white people are the vast majority. And I'm not saying that it ain't a lot of white folks, but it's a whole lot of everybody. And there's entire cities that are predominantly known for being one specific ethnic group.
Right.
All within America simultaneously. Talk about a conflict of interest. And on top of that, this is the cage of every unclean spirit, these hateful birds. It's the cage. People can't go nowhere. It ain't like they figuring out, oh, we can go here, we're going to have a better life. People get here and they get stuck. They realize this is the American nightmare that's been sold to them and their families for so many years and so many generations, only to realize how difficult it actually is, how damn near impossible, and then that there is no going back a lot of times.
Right.
It's very rare that people become homeless and bounce back. I mean, come on. But this is what we're talking about. Con.
Let me get these last two verses. Verse 3, for all nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication, and the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her, and the merchants of the earth are waxed rich through the abundance of her delicacies. And I heard another voice from heaven saying, come out of her, my people, that ye be not partakers of her sins, that ye receive not her plagues.
Man, he said, all nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. All these other nations. And that's what was the most recent lesson. Apologies are not repentance. All these other nations are aware. They've been profiting off of our people forever. America has always been the go-getter. I'm going to get it done. You know how many Israelites are in the American military? And Israel by blood, so-called blacks, Latinos, Native Americans, playing all these different roles. Playing roles in the infrastructure, playing roles in the farm and crops. Keeping this country afloat, right? Every nation has been able to say, okay, America's going to get it done. America's going to be reliable. But America is sacrificing all of its people in an effort to maintain an image. You got people down here about to lose. You got people unable to pay rent, about to lose their place because gas is $7 and the minimum wage is barely going up.
Right.
Because there's massive inflation and food is too expensive to actually be able to purchase. And all these other nations, they don't mind as long as they get that aid.
Yep.
They don't mind as long as they get what it is that they need out of it. And then America be like, all right, we'll give you some help, but I'll slide you a little TikTok, slide you a little Facebook or a little internet here. Let me slide you a little LGBT. Let me slide you a little something that's going to be according to the ideals that we practice. And they gladly taken of it. Mm-hmm. Wax rich. They don't even mind. All right, I'll do a little something like that. That's why he said, come out of her, my people, that ye be not partakers of her sins.
That's right.
It's not that we have to literally physically leave, because all these nations are partaking. Where are you going to go that you're not going to be regarded as an Israelite?
Come on.
But he said, look, you have to detach yourself. The way that America has taught you to live, and that's one thing, and I'm not going to be too much longer. I'm actually about to wrap it up here. That's one thing that we have to actually highlight, how much we're influenced. It'd be crazy to hear people, especially once we come into the knowledge of understanding that we're Israelites, to hear people talk about how they're not influenced. Mm-hmm. Or like, oh, my mind is my own, my thoughts are my own. Bro, you don't even realize how far back and how deeply embedded some of these things are within you, given to you by forms of media.
Right.
Given to you by your favorite show, your favorite movie. Given to you by your childhood cartoons. And you growing up with this ideology that's also been widely accepted by everyone else watching these cartoons, watching these movies, watching these shows, hearing these radio talk show hosts, seeing these things being policed and enacted by people who are already heavily influenced themselves. That's why I say we have to undo all these things that we've learned and that we've been taught and conditioned to think are normal into what the Most High has said is right, into what the Most High has said is proper and righteous and acceptable in His eyes. So, all praise to the Most High, Israel. We appreciate you for tuning in with us. We appreciate all the support. As I always say, I encourage you to continue to do research. It's a lot of useful, especially independent journalists. Yeah, I do throw in some CNN, some MSNBC, some of these larger ABC7, some of these larger news networks. But a lot of times, I'm hearing a lot of the information that at least I personally get from individuals who have clips like that. Because I don't remember seeing that in some major news broadcast, but it was on Instagram. And it was one of those, like, hood news channels that's like, here's what's going on in the community on a daily basis. Don't let this be the extent of what you look into, because this was very limited to what we had seen all month and what we've been sending each other back and forth, like, hey, check this out, current events, check this out, check this out, check this out. This is a fraction of it. So like the scriptures say, don't be ignorant of anything, great or small. And with that, we say, again, we appreciate you, Israel. Shalom.
Shalom.